Yes! Yes, 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 yes! That was a goal! Goal! Striker! Eat that! And another! Bing bang, stick it in. Thank you and good night.
Twat! That was liquid football!
Shit! Did you see that? He must have a foot like a traction engine. Goal!
Hello everybody, it's your old friends at Monday Bandits and welcome to the latest episode of the Liquid Football Podcast. And it's a slight departure from the norm this week as the Premier League is still waiting to be brewed up for another year. The World Cup is well and truly over, so now it's an opportunity to talk about real football for a change as we dip back into the League of Ireland for our mid to second half of the season recap. To see where everyone is going towards the European end of the season. Shamrock Rovers are currently 7 points clear at the top of the table, but does that tell the whole story? What about Pats? What about Bohs? What about Shels, who've had to change their manager this season and very much take John Russell off the sinking Sligo ship? And what of Derry City and the huge drama with James McLean and everyone else that has gone past, including their former manager, Tiernan Lynch? All that and more on this episode of the Liquid Football Podcast. We have a bit of a winning 11 mini game that takes us back to 2011 and the very start of Irish football having European adventures officially, as opposed to just in qualifiers. And then we have a little bit of a roundup then of what they're doing in Europe itself, along with a few little memory berries along the way. And that is all for this episode of the Liquid Football Podcast.
Goal!
So Dave, I have you on for a very special occasion here today. Unfortunately, Scottish football has been shuffled down the line. I know you're a little bit upset and disappointed about that because your season's just started. But of course, the League of Ireland has been ongoing and is now into its final leg. You know, it's gone through all the fun bits, the compressed bits. Now we're into the European bits, and then is the final charge to the end. So we've come at the right time basically to see where the league is. All the hilarious stories that's been happening in between, because it's not called the greatest league in the world without a reason, and what we have is some very, very funny stories to go in between. So seeing that you have hands-on experience, have you been enjoying the League of Ireland this year compared to some of the other ones we've had over the last couple of years?
I think it's the same thing you'd say with any league. When you're able to be there in person, it's very, very different. Because like we go to games regularly, we're there in person all the time, and it's different to watching it on television, as people always tell you. But I've been enjoying the League of Ireland this season because it has increased in its standard year on year, especially when it comes to the smaller clubs. And we'll look at Finn Harps obviously with their new push to end fan ownership purely because they found it unsustainable. But even the smaller clubs are making waves now, such as Waterford. You know, Waterford are flying at the minute. But I've enjoyed it. Yeah, look, I enjoy being able to see football from a tactical point of view with my own eyes, because on the television, the different camera angles, they're there to tell a story. They tell you what's going on in the game and the important bits, and you get a little bit of it. But being able to see it tactically from your own point of view in person makes it all the better. You know, you can see the defensive mistakes that you might not see on television. Who's not tracking back, who's not putting the work in, who's been running themselves ragged for 90 minutes. And obviously I get to see every team there at Hawker Park at least once. And I love that a lot of the teams in this league have just adopted an attacking mindset when it comes to away games. Especially when it comes to Rovers, Pats and Bohs. Obviously, when they roll into Tolka, it's a different story. It's always a derby game.
Yeah.
But just the attacking mindset of it's never just a 2-0 or a 1-0 or a 3-0. It's always both teams score. And that's what I love about this league. It's really taken an attacking mindset. Every team across the board's been the same, whether you're bottom of the league to the top of the league. But I've really enjoyed it. Look, I've enjoyed it for the past 4 seasons I've been involved with the League of Ireland. And you know, I'm very privileged to be in the position that I'm in, to be able to enjoy it week in, week out for the most part, especially in the European games. And And to see Ireland getting, with the potential, if Rovers, Bohs, or Pats win the FAI Cup, then it drops down. You have four Irish teams in Europe, and more often than not, in the last couple of years, at least one team has made the league phase.
Yeah.
Last season we had two, so it's just great to see that progress in the league. Now I know a lot of people are saying that the league doesn't get any money. Me and Kieran spoke about this yesterday.
Mm.
The people complaining saying the FAI doesn't get any money from the government, and I'm like, yeah, good, because you seen what we did the last time we got money from the government. It's so badly mismanaged. I don't blame them for not giving the FAI any money.
You give a cowboy a checkbook, that's kind of how it goes, yeah.
But yeah, exactly. So people are like, why don't the government give them money? Because what happened the last time they gave them money? How many scandals can we count on
Mm.
two hands? No, actually, we need about four hands. But yeah, it's just nice to see the progress of the game and to see the redevelopment of Dalymount as well. That will hopefully have a knock-on effect. Obviously, there's 3 houses left to be bought down in Inchicore for Richmond to get their redevelopment.
Yeah.
Tolka's very much, it is what it is because of what it's surrounded by. There's not really much room to maneuver there. Finn Harps have a lovely, I put it in the chat the other day, they have a lovely sketch of what their new stadium could look like, and it looks phenomenal. It's one of those stadiums you would not mind going to on the away day, regardless of whether it's in Ballybofey or anywhere else. And Eamon DC Park and Sligo and everything. I just love to see the standard from an infrastructure point of view now move forward, and to see every club get a little piece of the pie, because we know that when it comes to Rovers and teams underneath, when you can see the passion that the fans bring, you can see the football that's being played from these teams lower in the league. It's not that much different from the teams in the top four. They just lack the infrastructure and the funds. So I hope, fingers crossed. Obviously, there's a buyer that wants to come in, or consortium, I think it is, that wants to come in and buy Finn Harps. But that can have such a positive effect on the community. It happened to Galway United. We know that club is now very much community orientated, and the Comer Group and all that, when they took over,
Yeah.
they put money into the club, and it has a much more prestigious feel to it now, Galway United. When you look at the club and how proud they are of it, it just goes to show. I want that to happen for Sligo. I want that to happen for Waterford. I want Waterford to have their own ground one day. I understand they play in the sports centre. There's other teams across European leagues that play in sports centres. It's not uncommon.
Yeah, it's unusual, yeah.
Yeah, I'd love for them to have their own stadium and have their own place they can call home. And just in 10, 20 years' time, to have a League of Ireland set up where every stadium is at least kind of 5,000 capacity, modernised. Obviously, Tala's 10. Tolka's just above 5. I think it's 6 if they had it all seated. I think it'd be 6 or 6.5. The new Dalymount's got to be what?
8,000, I believe it's going to be.
8,000,
yeah.
You know what I mean? So it would be good to see that modernisation of infrastructure over the next couple of decades into the League of Ireland. So no matter what ground you go to, there's a good away day feel. You know what I mean? It just feels modern. It feels like they've caught up to the rest of Europe in that respect. But overall, sorry to go off on a tangent, I am really enjoying the League of Ireland this season. And you know what? I think the draws for Europe have been really unkind to the Irish teams in the most part. And I've seen that on the opposite side of the water, where the Scottish teams this year have gotten the good draws, where last year they gotten the bad draws, and the Irish teams got decent draws. So I think
it is very much it's so dependent on the seeding. And like I said, because we were talking about Europe in the second half of the show, and like the Rovers have been the beneficiaries of being seeded this year, and realistically, that's kind of how they got through last year as well, because of the previous seeding. Like it's a bit of a quirk of it's a quirk of the UEFA system, where like it accidentally rewards one club leagues, and I say accidentally because I don't think that's its intended purpose, but what it wants to do is it wants to reward consistency in qualifying for Europe. So it's not necessarily you being the best team in the league. It's about you being there or thereabouts, essentially. So like, it's probably more pertinent for, say, let's take Portugal, for example, because Portugal will be quite close to us in terms of like the size of the size and the number of clubs, let's say. So you're always going to get the same 4 or 5 teams from Portugal in Europe. You're always going to get your top 3. Braga's always their kind of perennial 4th place team, and then it's usually a random team that usually does well in the cups. Like this time it's Torinese, who's in the 2nd division in the part-time team.
Exactly.
But that's the randomness of football. Like that's their reward for winning the cup is to get into Europe. Um, and it would be kind of ironic in the sense that like like someone like Shamrock Rovers could get them in Europe and they could be the favourites. They could have a more professional setup than that from a team in Portugal. But that's neither here nor there. So yeah, we'll talk about that in the second half of the show. But we'll
Yeah.
go we'll
What
go
about you?
yeah.
What about you, Jonathan? How have you enjoyed the league this year? Because
Um, I think it's been
you're a season ticket holder, obviously at Rovers, and
sure. Yeah.
you see every team once, like myself, once a season at Talbot. What's your thoughts on the league this season?
I think it's been like I don't want to say it's been kind of a standard enough kind of like league for in terms of if I'm putting my like actual Rovers hat on here as seen on video. Um, I would say the kind of the main aspect for us is that the Rovers team always kind of feels like it's always been a certain level of transition. Um, it's by far and away got the biggest squad in the league, and I think that's certainly helped by the fact that we do have a substantially bigger playing budgets than most clubs. I want to qualify that because it's one team that definitely does have more of a budget than us, but isn't using it wisely. Um, but certainly in terms of the actual playing squads, like we're currently 7 points clear of our nearest rival, which is Pats. 9 games to go. It was a similar kind of margin last year. I think Bows were closer to us at this point, and then Bows fell away, so it made it look worse than it was. But Pats, I think they are like reasonably comfortable where they are. They probably will keep pace with us. Um, and this is always a kind of a weird part of the season where you've got the European games, you've got the cup games, and depending on how your fixtures fall, it can like these are the kind of games. These are kind of like return league games, the little hangover matches that you can drop points on. So the game we had against Dundalk, for example, where we won 3-2, that could easily have been a 3-2 the other way because it was just the nature of that match. Dundalk weren't playing, but we were, and having to rotate teams and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
well, Rovers' greatest skill this season is that rotation. It's been able to
Yeah.
take players out, put players in, and managing minutes and also managing knocks as well.
Yeah,
Um,
Rovers have always had that. Like I've said that over the last few seasons.
mm,
Rovers' depth is terrifying at times.
yeah.
When you can bring on players like Aaron Green in the 85th minute if you're down 2-1,
Mm,
and players like that who you have on the bench, who are just like when you look at the bench, you think that's a whole other six you could just throw on there, and it wouldn't be out of place in the starting lineup.
no.
I've always applauded Rovers for that, having that absolute depth of you're putting in guys who wouldn't be out of place in the first team.
Yeah, yeah. I think last season the biggest Rovers' biggest problem, like just generally just from watching them, was the general lack of pace in the back line. Because for the majority of the season we were rocking with a back three of Lee Grace, Pico Lopez, and Dan Cleary. And three league winning centre backs, no doubt about that. Like Dan Cleary, like is like one of the best centre backs of his time. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, his fitness level, his fitness record is so bad, and it's not really his fault. As a court in Liverpool will tell you, at the moment. But the thing about it is that like even just run the numbers and you run the data and you do all that sort of stuff like that. That's what most clubs will recognize as a weakness of that club of the team is it's a plus 30 back line. Any kind of pacey goal scorer, pacey winger, pacey inside forward will have a field day against that back three. What
Yeah.
saved us last year was the fact that we had someone like Josh Honahan playing wing back either on left or right side,
Yeah.
it is a fucking cheat code in the League of Ireland if you're able to play both wings. And which is why Rovers have been hoovering up players who can do that. They've been
It's
hoarding them like Dragon Goals.
it's just Bradley ball, isn't it?
It is, and it is, and in fairness, that's also been a key part of that as well. It's been able to convert players into that sort of style of play. So like replacing Honahan was a big thing, and what Rovers' great skill is, not only are they able to find solutions from their underage teams, where now they have over the last like say 5-10 years they've grown this massive monopoly on the most talented players at underage level. No, I'm not counting like the lesser senior league sides and stuff like that. The schoolboys leagues are a totally different story. But when it comes to like a League of Ireland infrastructure, it's typically between Rovers, Shels, and Bohs. Um, a lot of the other teams are not really getting an edgeways in that one.
Yeah.
And the curious thing about it is that um, we're starting to produce those players now that are ready to go into the first team. So Corey O'Sullivan, for example, is a massive godsend to Rovers because what's the best solution to an aging backline is to bring in a wide centre back who can both play it either on the left wing back or play in a centre back role and step out. And he can do that. Like I said, Honan got a lot of the headlines last year for some great performances, but Cordy was the real star of that back line. And
Yeah,
the fact that he's only 19, 20 years old, maybe another year or two of him, and then he might have a go at, in the English league system at some point. The biggest start term for us this year has been Tamisi Subawali. He has been absolutely
yeah,
unbelievable since coming in from St. Mirren. An absolute force of nature from the back line. And again, he's coming in at a good age, 27. So he's at like Rovers like hire recruiting players around that kind of proverbial peak age.
yeah.
Get a couple of years out of him. If he wants to stay on, do coaching badges, go fucking nuts. You're in the fold now, But Subawali has been such a massive step up in physicality that and it's been a kind of a tonic of those kind of teams that have been trying to put one on us in the last couple of years. That's in kind of Bose's solution to try and play us in derbies is to try and be more physical, high pressure, kind of like, batter that kind of back three I was talking about and just kind of pull them apart and stuff like that. That hasn't worked with Super Wally in the back line. He's the one that steps out. He's the one he's substantially more mobile than most of the centre backs and wing backs in the league. Like he was signed to be a wing back. But just by virtue of the fact that, like, okay, hang on, we've been able to convert someone like Mulroney, for example,
Yeah.
who I don't think has been the best for us this year, but he fits a purpose. So he's
I
been
think
able to play in as wing back.
he's been one of the players who's been inconsistent or lazy for the past 3 or 4 seasons. Never
Yeah,
mind,
it's like
this
he's
season
he's
he's
one
been
of those players.
disappointing.
I think someone I was talking to at the last game kind of summarized it quite well when he said he's a 60-minute player, not a 90-minute player. Or he's a 30-minute player. He's a sprinter as opposed to a full 90. And I can understand that. Like if he's a good at bench option, he's different to what you have out there, then that's
Yeah.
fine. That's kind of what Rovers like to have as options and choices. So the fact that Subawale is now permanent at Rovers is perhaps the biggest signing we could possibly have made. Um,
Yeah, and I love seeing players from the Scottish leagues come into Ireland because they understand the physicality and the what's the word I'm looking for? The demand
yeah.
more than the players from the English lower leagues. We've seen it time and time again. They think they come over from your Bolton Wanderers and your Lincoln Cities and your other teams, and they think they'll walk it, and
Mm,
they fall flat in their face because they just don't understand the physicality. When they come over from Scotland, we've seen it. Karen McEnroy is probably one of the best
a good
midfielders
example,
in
yeah.
Ireland at the moment. Came over from Kilmarnock a few seasons ago, and he's been outstanding. The same way you spoke about Subawale there, coming over from St. Mirren. The players that come over from Scotland tend to hit the ground running because they're used to that physicality, they're
Yeah.
used to that demand, and of course we have a Scottish player in Rovers folklore and Gary Twick from years ago.
Yeah.
When again, it doesn't matter what decade you talk about. There's always players coming over from Scotland to play in Ireland, and I
Yeah.
love that connection because there is really not much difference. Like me and Kieran spoke about this again
Mm.
yesterday, that the League of Ireland is kind of in between. It's better than the Championship, but not quite at that Premiership level yet. But it's kind of in between the two.
Yeah,
Um,
it's hard to say. Like, I think because I think we flatter to deceive sometimes in terms of, like, as always, Europe is always a good barometer for where we actually are because yeah, you will get beaten on your day sometimes, but it's how you're able to play in a certain degree. And I think a lot of teams in the league. Well, I can split the league into kind of two camps in a sense. There's the team that want to play progressive, quite liberal football, and then there's teams that are so pragmatic because they need to stay in the league in order to keep being professional. And that's the camp that would include the likes of Drogheda and Galway, for example. Galway know what they are and they play a certain style, and that is intended for survival, and that's totally fair. Sligo have always been an aberration where they play really progressive football, even though they're normally in a relegation battle. This is the year where it's unfortunately caught up with them because, unfortunately, their players they've had to let to sell a lot of their players,
and
and
Johnny Russell's obviously gone to
yeah,
Shelbourne as well, which doesn't help matters. I think
no,
it's really
it's just the
sad.
end of their cycle.
You know,
Unfortunately, that's the way it
yeah,
is.
it's really sad to see Sligo Rovers become that sinking ship because I don't think they deserved it. I think the club are really good. I like watching them play as well.
Yeah.
They have such a rich history in the Premiership, and to see them at the very bottom on the brink of relegation is actually really sad. I don't mean any disrespect to the other teams in the league themselves. Like
Mm.
I genuinely think this is probably the best 10 teams we've had in a League of Ireland top division in a while, where you don't really want to see anyone go down. I mean, Waterford have been kind of the surprise of the first half of the season because they've got such big results against the top 4 or 5.
From
And
having such a terrible start, it should be said as well. Like they
exactly,
were
do you know what I
winless in
mean? Yeah.
9. Like, yeah.
Exactly. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Now they're one of 3 teams, which includes Rovers and Pats, who are unbeaten in 5.
Yeah.
You know what I
The
mean?
same.
They've stepped up, and Derry City, like, although we'll come to the basket case that is Derry City eventually, but um, they've still maintained that mid table position. They haven't dropped kind of down to that relegation zone,
Yeah.
and Galway, Drogheda, Waterford. These are all teams that you'd expect. Okay, they should be in the Premiership. And I think this is going to be the toughest season where we see teams we don't want to see go down
Mm.
potentially go down.
I think the season has been the best has been the biggest conversation for a 12-team league since we've switched to
Oh yeah,
10. Because you look at the first division and Cork is walking it. Like, and we played Cork in the cup there in the second round. They should be in the first division. And again they had a terrible season. They made an absolute like bottle job of the transfers. And again, I know some of that is not their fault because Rory Keaton picked up an injury and Johnny Maguire's injury record is not the best. So maybe having a bit of squad depth up front is ideal. I know they had to sell one of their young players to Lyon, I want to say. Or certainly somewhere in France anyway, because he was a very, very top prospect. I know we were looking at him at one point. And yeah, I think it was actually John Caulfield who said like maybe this is the time to switch back to a 12-team league.
yeah,
Because of the strength of Cork, but because of also like if you look at the first division, like that little bit of rotation it's an 11. It's ultimately Ireland's an 11-team country now at the moment
yeah,
because of how Galway have been able to keep themselves consistent. It's going to be harsh on Sligo to go down to the first division next year, but they're
yeah,
way too strong for the first division as well. So they're just going to come back up straight away, And likewise, Dundalk, even though they've had all their problems financially and having to register a whole lot of young players, like they kept a good solid core of those senior players there because they all knew, listen, a year in the wilderness where we might go part time, fuck it, we might have to do like an extra job in the side, but we can get back to the first division. Like they knew they could go back to the Premier Division straight
yeah,
away because of the quality they had. And then obviously you had people coming in. Then like there's a project there clearly at Dundalk that's helping to
yeah.
kind of like to kind of ease those troubles there a little bit. And thankfully that ship is now kind of settled to a certain degree, and they kind of are back to where they are.
Yeah. Their
Um,
biggest thing is Oriel Park getting an upgrade because that place has fallen to shit for
Yeah,
the lack of a better
and
phrase.
that'll be what restricts them in future because a
Yeah,
lot of the other places, as you said, around the country, let alone in the division, are getting new stadiums and new facilities,
yeah,
and Dundalk can't stand still, and that goes for Drogheda as well. I should say,
yeah,
like
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
and Derry, like Derry. One of the various problems they've had this season was being homeless for 2 months. But that will hopefully give them a good platform in the future to be able to say, right, we have a solid new stadium, we
yeah,
have an all grass pitch, which is a huge fucking change, huge
yeah,
difference. It's gonna take a year or two of those lads to really get used to it. The training on a more regular schedule, that sort of stuff. This was the year. Like I was, we'll go to Derry now in a moment, but like this is the year where I thought we were going to get more challenges. Going back to if I'm putting my Rovers lenses back on again, I thought we were going to get a serious challenge this year because Pico was going to the World Cup. Because I was expecting at least Noonan to be sold off this summer as well. It's not happening at the moment, it seems. Um, Possibly maybe January, but. Even the likes of say, Pats and Bowls, like they can put on a run on it. Like you're thinking, looking at the Shelbourne project and all the recruitment that they were doing. If they caught fire, it could have been a different story. I think the problem with us is that we just haven't had a serious like season long like challenge. Because teams have fallen and dropped points, and especially in the last couple of weeks, it's really shown because even that result against Dundalk there, that's come with the back of a drop like of Bowes losing to Waterford, which is a ridiculous result that for Bowes, and again
yeah.
that's in the context of them playing in Europe as well. So like Rovers, their great skill has been able to play twice a week where the other teams can't.
Yeah,
Um,
like Shels League
yeah.
win was your biggest challenge when Shels won the league a few seasons ago. That was the biggest challenge for you because obviously you had them
Mm,
win on that. Was it the last day in Derry where they won the league? But
yeah.
you need that challenge. Don't you? I mean, you're 7 points clear now
Mm,
at the top. And as much as I like, as much as I understand Rovers running away with it most years, I get it. Because just the level of infrastructure and the talent of the players there, even
mm,
coming through the youth ranks, is outstanding. For those who are just kind of saying that Ireland is a one-team league and all this. So they're just jealous that their teams don't have what Rovers have. And I think,
Rovers are again. Rovers are also capitalizing on the success of what they've done in Europe. Like you mentioned
exactly,
there
yeah.
about you mentioned there about like the kind of the financial disparity between. This is essentially a league that is run by the FAI, and the FAI don't put any money into it because shock horror, the FAI don't have any money. So like they're and again like as much as we joke about it in a sense, the prize money in the FA in the league division is absolutely laughable. You know, it is the same as a draw in a European League phase. Shels would have won for two draws that they got last season. They would have won the league twice, three times over from that financially, and that's why they're able to go on a bit of a recruitment drive. That's why they've been able to reopen parts of Tolka. You know, you're not going to get that from winning a league. You're not going to get that from winning the FAI Cup. The FA Cup's biggest reward is European football. It's not the prize money. The prize money you could probably like spend down the fucking pub. To be honest with you, it's not that much. Now, sponsors aside, now maybe that's changed a little bit, and certainly on the
Yeah.
women's side, I think they feel the prize money a bit more because it's a totally different financial gain there. But at the very least, Europe is the goal for this, and the better that any Irish clubs can do in Europe,
Yeah.
the more money you get back from UEFA that spreads across the league. That's why you're seeing teams now being able to go, "Oh, we can use this UEFA money now to sign more players."
Yeah,
Uh,
the golden goose
yeah.
of Europe is always the attraction of that top four.
Yes.
And the fact that Ireland has a top four with obviously with the FAI Cup going to one of the top three teams, which isn't out around possibility most seasons, but
Hmm.
to have them go and hunt for Europe and that top four spot is so important. Especially could you imagine if Dundalk made it into Europe? Now they've been in Europe before, we know that, but this version of
I'm actually
Dundalk,
tipping the dog to win the cup this year.
if Dundalk get
Hmm.
into Europe this year, now I'm talking this version of Dundalk after all the trouble they've had. If they manage to get into Europe and have at least a run to the third round or the qualifiers or whatever it is,
Yeah.
that's so much money to them that they can start thinking about infrastructure.
Hmm.
And then next season maybe you have a Galway hitting Europe. You know what I mean? It should always be, obviously some of these teams are just not capable of challenging for the league title, but their secondary aim should always be hitting that fourth spot,
Hmm.
because the money that can come in from that can help balance them into that mid-table. It can help bring them up into that mid-table, sign better players, and then increase the crowd. You know yourself, it's a knock-on
Absolutely.
effect.
Yeah. No. 100%
Increasing the
agree.
crowd, increasing the fans, and those dominoes fall in a good way. And
Yeah.
before you know it, you've got, instead of having 1,500 at your ground, you got three. You got double the amount of people at your ground because
Hmm.
you're in Europe, and then everyone wants to see their local team in Europe, and then you have the money to improve the facilities. Then that gets more people along.
Yeah.
And
It's
you
very
know,
evident with Rovers, obviously, because we have the bigger stadium and we find it very difficult to pack it out on a good day. Like derbies, there's no real kind of change, like harm, like
yeah,
worry in that sense because like the stadium is much bigger than we probably need it to be in a sense. Like on average, our attendances are about three and a half, 4,000, maybe 5,000 on on days that aren't like say across like on a regular kind of weekend, it'll be about four to
yeah.
5,000,
Which is
and
crazy because I'd say the average crowd at Tolka is about 4.5.
it's
So
because
like
it's out Tala. Like that's what it is.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
a
because
good percentage of the Rovers fan base is still Rings End based, and a lot of
yeah,
them find it quite difficult to get out to Tala on a weekly basis. And if you're not on the tram line, then you're kind of stuck then a little bit. So like I think
yeah,
that's something
and
that the club just
it's crazy.
generally are kind of like. If there's one critique I have, is a lot of it is on the administrative side, and maybe not keeping up with kind of like the commercial side of things the way that Pats
Yeah,
and Bows have this year. Like when you have your captain playing at the World Cup, that is a slam dunk to put out a your third kit in Cape Verde colours, and they haven't done it. And so be it. Like they maybe didn't want to kind of like jinx themselves and making it like an absolute fucking shambles or whatever. But like this is the sort of stuff that they're slow off the mark on. Like they've done great loads of stuff on sponsorships now, and they're trying to sponsor everything at the fucking club, like a fucking like they're an F1 car or something. And again, that's something that they've been slacking off as well. But because
yeah,
they have the European clout, that is the stuff they should have been doing beforehand. But now they are.
yeah, yeah,
So
exactly.
they're catching up on themselves to a certain degree, and they're probably kind of embracing the fact that they are more of a European team than they are an Irish team. That has its
Yeah,
own pitfalls as well because now they are budgeted for European football. They're not budgeted for just a League of Ireland campaign. So if it's like a season like 2024 where you got no European football at all and to take a loan out to cover to cover the overheads, that runs
yeah,
its own risks. So they have to be consistent. They have to be reliable in that sense.
yeah.
Um, Let's move on to the other clubs then. So the biggest contender, the closest contenders that Rovers have had this year have also been in Dublin, which is Pats and Bows.
Yeah.
Kind of really inseparable all season, really. They've been kind of chopping and changing second place
Yeah, I
between them.
mean
You know,
they've kind of been very very similar
yeah,
because they've both been inconsistent to the point where Bows we thought at the start of the season, holy crap, they're going on a mad run. Then they fell off a cliff and then they climbed back up that cliff and then they fell off again. And Pat's biggest problem here is not being able to maintain a lead or just drawing too many bloody games, which has been so frustrating. As a Pats
that's been
fan,
an issue for Pats for
it's so
years,
frustrating.
especially in
Yeah,
the Stephen Kenny era. Is like
yeah.
they started
It's the
off strong, they
inconsistency
play really
that
nice
just
football, but they don't
yeah.
have a finishing instinct.
No, no. The inconsistency for me has been the absolute bane of my season so far.
Mm,
Because I know we're capable of mounting that challenge. Like this was the season where I thought we have the ability to mount a challenge here against Rovers because as you said, you were looking for that challenge.
yeah.
You know, this season you thought this is the season where one was going to challenge, and I genuinely thought this could be the season we do it. And we've drawn three of the last five, and that's been the story of our season. Bows are the same.
Mm,
You know, they've lost a string of games, and they won a string of games, and they lost a string of games. And it's almost like Pats and Bows have just balanced themselves out. There's nothing in it.
yeah.
There's absolutely nothing really in the runs. I mean, 13 wins for Pats, 12 for Bows. Both have 8 draws. You know, Pats just have one less loss.
Yeah.
That is literally the difference between the two teams.
I think the biggest problem with Pats is that this is not news to Pats fans either, but they've always had such a massive reliance on Chris Forrester for all the creative
I
work.
know, I know.
And listen, Chris Forrester is one of the greatest League of Ireland players to have ever graced the league. He is a silky, smooth, fabulous technical footballer, and again is someone who probably should have had a much bigger career than the one he's had. That's the story for a lot of, it's particularly number 10s, particularly a lot of creative players in the league. Like I could say the same thing about Graham Burke. I think the two very, very similar players. But the difference is that Pats need to play Forrester most weeks because they don't have enough options there. Like Keane Levy's injured, Albazzetti's injured, Palmer's injured most days as well. So they're almost forced to have to play Forrester every single week, whereas Rovers don't have to play Burke every single week. You know, they like Rovers in a sense have this kind of PSG style luxury to them where like in Ligue 1, Ousmane Dembele doesn't play regularly. Like Dembele is solely for European football and for the bigger games against Marseille and Lyon. They do not
Yeah,
play. He doesn't play against Clermont Foot or Nantes or anyone like that. He will play the big games. He'll be deployed the way they are, like Burke is.
yeah,
Burke will play the Dublin derbies. He'll play the cup games. He'll play in Europe. That's his remit, and that's what he trains for. So they like the fact that like training yourself for 24 big games is different than training for 45 league and domestic games, you know.
yeah,
And I think that in a sense that is not a problem that's going to fix itself overnight for Pats because
no,
you can't overhaul a team in 1 week in 1 year like that. It does take time. Like the reason why Rover squad is so good is that it's accrued over a series of 4 or 5 years. And we've been able to tie down people to like multi-year contracts. Pats are able to do that, thankfully, because they do have the budget to say to someone like, say, I don't know, take your pick, like Luke Turner, right? He's at about 23, 24, right? So you
yeah,
can say, listen, we'll give you a 3 year contract, you know, and if someone comes to you, well, we might have a release clause for you, or we might be able to do business, you know. So they're able to do stuff like that, where they're able to offer
yeah,
really, really good deals and really good offers. Whereas say other clubs in the league are only able to do 1 year because they can't guarantee their league status. At least Pat can say, listen, we had a bit of a clanger last year. It's not going to happen this year because we have the quality to do it. They're second in the league, which I think is probably the target. Especially considering how big you could have argued Kenny could have walked last at the end of last season because it was pretty poor, you know. For what it's worth as well on the Bowes conversation, Bowes are in a similar kind of boat to Pats in a sense where Bowes, in theory, I think could be a better team.
yeah,
But again, their budget is different to Rovers, and you say probably to Pats as well. Like again, this is the whole conversation about privately owned and membership and all this sort of stuff. I think on their day, Bows have the best midfield in the league. You know, in like last year, I think their biggest triumph was the trifecta between Tierney, Clark, and Devoy. Um, I don't think they've been good this season. I will say I think they're missing Clark. I like they've got a couple of players in a mixture there that are, and so it is quite a young team. It has to be said as well. In fairness, I think Colin Williams has been a good addition. I think because I think Doug James Taylor has not worked out as the striker they wanted. Um, Connor Parsons is a pain in the hole. In the nicest possible way because he always seems to fucking score against us, whether it be for
Yep.
Waterford or for Bows.
Bit
Um,
Danny Welbeck, innit?
yeah, very much so. If they can somehow get Harry Vaughan on a more regular basis, even permanently, I think that transforms Bowes at
Yeah.
like on a
I mean,
fundamental
I
level.
I can't remember the last time. I don't. I say I can't remember. It's probably true. I can't remember the last time a Bowes player was capped by Ireland.
Yeah,
Realistically,
but that was based on form, though. That
you
was
know.
based on the fact that the boy at the time was the best
But
player
that's
in
what
the
I
league.
mean. Like
Yeah,
the fact that these are League of Ireland players are getting capped internationally
yeah,
says a lot about how much the league has come on. Because we all know, you know, on the turn of the millennium and right the way through the first couple of decades, right?
mm,
We knew that the FAI didn't give a shit about who was playing in the league or who was playing well in the league. Brian
yeah,
Kerr is the biggest advocate for that, where he was getting players injured on international duty in underage games. Wasn't even told they were injured. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
this is his team during the league season. I mean, the league was so looked down upon over the past couple of decades, and to now see it come to the point where Jack Bourne's getting called up, over the last few years, Dawson Devoy's getting called up. That the league is now having a representation in the national team
Mm.
is so vindicating of the league, and a massive middle finger to the FAI
Well, it
because
also
they've
helps
spent
as
so
well, like
many
that, like
decades like just not
yeah.
caring.
To Helgrimson's kind of credit, he has at least been attending league games,
Yeah,
which wasn't the case with our previous regime. Um, and that is at least something because I think for the most part, I don't think he was scouting players in a sense. I think he's trying to get an idea of what of the kind of the selling point of Irish football actually is. What are we good at? What do we do? What do we do well? How do we maximize players? Because again, a good percentage of the players that do play in England are yeah, either they're from the schoolboy leagues or they're from the League of Ireland, and that percentage does need to shift from one to the other in a sense because a lot of players get missing go missing in the kind of schoolboy kind of leagues because they are brilliant at schoolboy level, but they can't make that transition then to league football, and that is purely just down to their bodies are not ready for the massive step up. You know, there's a reason why we haven't seen Honohan tear it up yet in Lincoln, and hopefully he will this year. But again, he went over to Lincoln carrying a knock, and that knock just that doesn't clear, and Lincoln are going for promotion chase. You don't want to change the team that much, so hopefully it'll be different this year. Um, but yeah, I think Pats and Bowes would be happy with second and third this year. I think Bowes' target has always been European football and trying to get those couple of games. Again, could very well charge for the cup this year and try and get into the Europa League, which is an even bigger payday and just that extra little step on the ladder. Because you could probably arguably say like Derry getting that second place by virtue of the cup double from Rovers didn't really work out for them. But again, they were able to budget for that, so that's something at least. As well, I suppose like Dundalk would probably qualify as the surprise package of the league, mainly because it's been quite a while since you've had a promoted team finish potentially this high up in the league. Like I think they're kind of good value for fourth place at the minute. I'd say they will probably kind of finish around fifth or sixth in the end. They probably will taper off a little bit. Selling off their two main strikers in the Ruby and Kenny is going to catch up to them in the end. But again, that's massive money that club has needed. Um, I've been a fan of Kilduff's kind of style, in terms of how he plays his team. It's very front foot. It's very aggressive. It's very confrontational, as we learned last week, to Keane Barrett's detriment. Maybe a little bit too on the nose, a little bit too harsh, I think. But what they are very good at is they are at least brave. They said they've gone against the kind of traditional logic of a promoted team of trying to keep things solid and kind of keep things kind of centered and stuff like that. And they just said, "Fuck it, let's just go for it." And again, it's outside of the likes of Daryl Horgan. It's a fairly young team, but the fact that Daryl Horgan has been so unbelievable this season probably shouldn't come as a surprise. Like he is an evergreen player, and the League of Ireland, I think, if there is a selling point of it is a league of abnormalities. Like if we go with kind of conventional, kind of like football data logic, a 33-year-old winger shouldn't be working the way as well as it does in the league, but Daryl Horgan does. Rory Gaffney being at 37 shouldn't be the best player of our team last year. bullying Kosovan centre backs in Europe. That shouldn't be happening, but it is. You know, like player like Patrick Hickey at Bohs is a fucking freak of nature. He's 6'6". He can play either striker or he's like Gary Doherty on steroids. But the league attracts people like that. It's like it's an entire league of misfits. You know what I mean? You're muted there, Dave. Your mic is off.
Apologies.
Oh,
It's probably because when I was eating, yeah, I was
yeah,
muting myself. Yeah, and it's the same with Pats as well. Edmondson up front is a almost like your classic centre forward. He's a big guy. He's tall. He's good in set pieces. Good in the air. But can also score with his feet. And he's been hot and cold this year, but I think he'll settle in. I love the kind of, it's almost like a freaks and geeks style of football in this league, because you have just these cult heroes
yeah,
that
definitely.
emerge over the course of 10 years. When you look back over the last 10 years, you can probably pick out 5 or 6 kind of cult heroes of the League of Ireland.
So we did an
Um,
electricity 11 like with that.
yeah, exactly. You
Yeah,
remember when we did that?
yeah.
Yeah. Joseph and Doe, for example, went from cult hero as a player to being in demand as never actually came back as a commentator, unfortunately. But
No,
as a color commentator, like he's had some viral moments. You have these little cult heroes and these little misfits in there, and I
yeah.
love that about this league. It was kind of like when these players go across the water as well. You're sad to miss them, because watching Harry Wood play every week was an absolute pleasure. And when
Mm,
he left for England recently, it stung a little for me, because obviously I'm there at Talca, and you want to watch entertaining players every week. And he was probably one of the most bullish technical players that I've seen in the league in such a long time.
yeah.
And it's like with Jack Moylan as well. When you see a midfielder so attack minded and gifted, and you get to watch him every week, you kind of look forward to match days where you can watch a player of that talent play
Mm.
week in, week out. Now, I don't blame Shels for selling Harry Wood. Like
It's good business, in fairness. It's good
it
business.
is, but
Yeah.
they from what I know, the offer's obviously undisclosed, but it's going to come to a point where a team puts in an offer that you cannot refuse. Like Harry Wood was in demand in the off season in last winter. There was a
Mm.
lot of clubs in from. They managed to hold on to him, but this summer just probably was like we can't ignore it anymore. And
Yeah.
it's the same with Mason Melia, obviously on loan now from Spurs. He's a long-term project for Spurs. But even seeing someone so young and so talented leave, because he's a tall young player. You don't see many 19-year-olds with that kind of height and forward
Frame.
presence.
Yeah.
Peter Crouch style. Not that
Mm.
exactly like that, but they don't come around very often. And it's just sad when you see the young guys leave. Not that they haven't earned their space across the water, but you just want them. You just want them to represent the league just that little bit longer, so you can get the most
Yeah.
out of them.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So I suppose so Shels have been probably one of the biggest stories of the league, I'd say, along with Derry. Two kind of, I would say, relative basket cases, because I think one has been a kind of a controlled basket case, and then one has been a completely like on fire, currently still smouldering basket case.
Yeah,
So
it's a dumpster fire up in.
yeah.
Oh, I shouldn't say dumpster fire up the north. I really should phrase that better.
Yeah.
No, Derry's kind of crumbling and just falling apart because of the decision to bring in a player that has a history of creating unrest at clubs, has a
Mm,
history of knowing that he cannot keep his bloody mouth shut. And they decide to bring James McLean back to Derry, and we all said at the beginning of the season, this is a bloody mistake. They wanted James McLean to be that marquee player that leads the charge in the dressing room to the top of the table, gets them a league title, gets them into Europe proper,
yeah.
and brings on a new era of prosperity for Derry City. It's gone the complete opposite direction, where they have now just collapsed in amongst themselves because they've gotten rid of their manager. James McLean's come out and said stupid things in the media. He's been more
Mm,
trouble than he's worth. He's now gone from Derry, as you said earlier on
yeah.
in the group chat, that he's now gone from Derry, and I think good riddance. Better for them to have gotten rid of him. And I think Derry overall really have to go back to the drawing board. Obviously, well, he's not cheap. James McLean's not a cheap player to get in. See what you can do with his wages now that they've been freed up. Who you can get in to steady the ship and start again next season.
Can I give you a bit of a
It's open.
can I give you a bit of a pop quiz here, right? Because
Yeah, okay.
It's not to say that James McLean is the. I want to kind of qualify that I don't think James McLean is the sole reason why
No,
Derry's
no,
season's
but
gone off the rise.
he is the highest
He's a sy-
profile of
yeah. I think he's a
the
symptom of it. I
troublemakers.
think.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I want to ask you, right? If you were to hazard a guess, how many players do you think Derry have signed this year?
5,
You want to go? You want
15.
to go? You're closer with 15. Uh, I'm not even joking here, right? I'm gonna go in date
Right,
order,
okay, go
right?
on.
There's 4 loans. This is all
Right,
from
okay.
Transfermarkt, so this
Right.
might not be fully up to date. 4 loans: Henry
Okay,
Rulila,
go.
Josh Thomas, Alex Bannon, Eddie Beach. Eddie Beach now at Shels.
Yeah.
Deepak Akinyemi, Jamie Stott, Shea Callister, James McLean, James Olayinka, Kevin Santos, Rob Slevin, Darragh Markey, James Clark, Adam Frizzle, Brandon Fleming, Barry Cotter, Patrick McLean, and even then, even in the summer, they signed 5. They signed 6 players in the summer, like so. Ellis Chapman, Dara Burns, Brooklyn Lines Foster, Christy Grogan, Tyler Smith, and Nick Twisk. They signed 23 players this year.
How can you not tell the fans this is a rebuild, give us time? Why
Mm.
the hell would you act as if though you're going to make a charge for the top when you've signed a total to date of 23 players?
And
Yeah,
if you
that
counted last season, that's another 10, 11 players on top of
nah,
that.
that's stupid. I mean, that is complete mismanagement of a football club. You cannot act like big boys and act like league contenders when
Mm.
the rotation of your squad is nearly 50% a season. You
This is what I
cannot
was saying
do
about
that.
earlier on was that like this is who I was referring to when I said about like they're only offering 1 year contracts. Like it is literally Derry are very short term in trying to get the success out. Like I genuinely did think that Derry was going to win the league this year because they were throwing so much at it, and I knew they were going to try and kind of catch us at the moment of weakness.
No.
Because again, like the Rovers team is an aging squad, and at the time we weren't to know how good Super Wally was going to be. Didn't know if
But the
Corey was going to
age
be
is being
around. You
used
know,
and managed wisely. The age is being
yeah.
used cleverly. You're, like you said, you're taking Graham Burke, and was it Graham Burke you said were you using for just European games?
Yeah, pretty much. And
Yeah.
Aaron Green, I
So
say, yeah.
you're yeah, and Aaron Green. So you're
Hmm.
taking these players who are in the latter stages of their career, and you're managing their time, minutes, and their fitness properly.
Yeah,
So and that's why Rovers have been so consistent and so good over the years because they know what they're doing. They know
yeah,
how to manage these players later on in their careers, manage the minutes, manage the fitness, make sure they don't get injured consistently. It's about having a top-notch physio department, which I know Rovers have. They're spectacular physio department. Um, and I just think, Derry having a fleet of 20 players a season coming in is outrageously unsustainable for one
yeah,
thing. Um, I do not endorse any club to do that. With regard, unless you're Leinster Senior League or Scottish equivalent of the Lowland and Highland League, even League Two at a push can be like that sometimes because you
yeah,
have, like in the League of Ireland, you have players over in Scotland who bounce between teams in the same league. They usually do it
yeah,
once a
yeah.
season.
The 1 year deals and stuff like that. It
But you,
happens.
you
Yeah.
cannot have a 1 year contract in a professional league especially in Ireland. You cannot be floating 1 year contracts around, especially to that many players in a season, and expect sustainable growth in a team and in a club.
Yeah.
That is why we're calling for those listening. That is why we're calling them a basket case, because Derry should have a lot more discipline. They should have a lot more control and a little bit more foresight in where this is going to go. Because,
Mm.
like you said, Jonathan, you expected them to win the league this year because of what they were throwing at it. But what they threw at it, I'd say about 5% of it's stuck and 95% of it's in the toilet.
Yeah, 100%. Like, and that's the thing. Like, I think the like James McLean is the one that catches the headlines, and I will say, when I've seen McLean play in person in that Derry team, central midfield is not his position, and I don't know where
No.
that coming from. I don't know if that was part of the deal or something, but like my God, he is an anchor in that midfield. And again, it's the same. It's the kind of Ronaldo syndrome we had for the Portugal team. It
Yeah,
was
yeah,
such a similarity because I really felt that he was dictating what this team should do when
yeah,
he himself is
absolutely.
not able to move. And again, I'm not. This is not going to be a personal attack on McLean whatsoever. Like his international career speaks for himself, and as I understand the personal testimonials of him is different to the perception of him as on social media and stuff. But he's just a loose cannon when it comes to this Derry team. Like he is such a negative influence on the club because he's so outspoken because he is completely uncontrollable in that sense. Whereas what Derry kind of needed was for all these players to bed in and click. And immediately when you have someone who has such a high opinion of himself and probably can't accept the fact that his body is slowing down and is kind of like not able to do what he used to do,
Yeah, yeah.
that has a knock-on effect on those players as well. And especially when you're playing them out of position, you can't.
James McLean is a left-sided winger, right? James McLean always to me is a right or left-sided winger.
Yeah.
No matter what way you look at it, right? Playing him in midfield, I don't care if you're like looking at him going, oh, well, he's a little bit older, he's a little bit slower. How about we play him in midfield so he doesn't have to track back as much, doesn't have to run forward as much, and we can maybe. I can understand the logic behind it, but unfortunately, the logic's completely flawed because either
Don't play him in the engine room midfield. Like,
no, don't, because he's a winger who's
Yeah.
who's at time who 90% of his career he's a winger who's extremely selfish. So what makes you think he's going to give that ball up in the midfield?
yeah,
Right.
and incidentally, as you said, as a left winger, like Derry's best
Yeah.
player by a country
He's a
mile
wi-
is Michael Duffy, who also plays in the left wing. So
Exactly.
how do you make that work? Like,
So, what I would do is you play James McLean on the left, but you tell him you get one of the midfielders to drop back a little bit sooner to cover that position. If he's not capable of tracking back as well as he used to, plan for it. Have a midfielder shift in when he's unable to get back as quickly, just to cover that till he does get back.
yeah.
And it's not that difficult, but play him in the right position, putting him in that, as you said, in that engine room midfield. He's one of the most selfish wingers I've ever seen. What makes you think he's giving up that rock to anyone else in that midfield, or even going forward?
Yeah.
And
And there's clearly personality differences, clearly a clash there between between him and the manager.
Yeah.
I think Lynchcott, like, again, as you said, like when you're throwing so many signings at it and you're burning so much money into it, like your whatever European kind of bounty you got from being in the Europa League to start off with is now kind of burnt out because you spend it all on it.
It's gone. It's gone.
Exactly.
And next season they're going to feel that. Next season they're really going to feel that because they're going to realize there's no money there because they didn't make Europe.
Yeah. Well, again, like Derry are the team that are like they're the poster boys of unsustainability because they get like a couple of million thrown their way by Philip Doherty.
Well, I say that they still can't make Europe mathematically. I'm not saying
They
won't. But
yeah, it'll be the fourth place team. They could win the cup.
Yeah.
They could do a few different things. So what about Shels and Dave? Because obviously you've seen a lot of them. You've seen the kind of the downturn in O'Brien's fortunes, and now Russell's in. So how have this Shels season been for you as an eyewitness?
Frustrating. It's a frustrating season for Shels because obviously I am partially invested because I'm there every week, and the team that you work for, regardless of who you follow in League of Ireland, like obviously I'm a Pats fan, but you kind of want to see your team that you work for do well because if they do well, they're happy, you're happy, and it's it just keeps the mood up. But recently it's been tough on the fans and the staff who absolutely love the club because the team is capable of so much more. And bringing in Johnny Russell is probably the best appointment they could have done, and I will die on that hill because what he did with Sligo was fantastic, and what he done at Sligo was great, and I enjoyed watching Sligo under Johnny Russell, and I had the privilege of interviewing him a few times on LOI TV, and he's a very well mannered guy, and the red card yesterday was totally unwarranted. If you look back on that whole incident, like he sent him off, and I was going, for what? What he sent? He went to get the ball to continue play on. And he got sent off for it.
It's what we call in the trade a Rob Harvey special.
Yeah.
I know it wasn't Rob Harvey this time. But,
I feel frustrated for the fans and for the staff and everything because I think they're just caught up in a really bad timing. That Johnny Russell's come in and it's not his squad. He's not. Realistically, they've brought back some players who have just not hit the heights they did before. It's almost like as a Hibs fan, I call it the Florian Canberry paradox, where he's on loan and he lights the place up on fire and he does so well. The fans want him back. He comes back. He does nothing. Will Jarvis is the perfect example of that, where he done great when he was there on loan. They've now signed him permanently, and he's been in and out of the squad all season. He's not done enough for me in all honesty. To warrant his place in that squad, and I know that they're going to look at that, and Johnny Russell's going to have to bring in players that he wants.
Yeah.
Paddy Barrett is, and I can't stress this enough. Paddy Barrett is one of the best centre backs in the League of Ireland in the last 10 years that I've had the privilege of watching.
Yeah, he has a passing distribution that no one else can match in the league. That's
He
again,
has,
he's one of the freaks I keep talking about. Like he shouldn't
yeah,
be able to ping 50-yard passes from where he is. He's brilliant at it.
no, he's such a good leader as well.
Yeah.
And what he's been through, yeah, the unfortunate passing of his mother this season as well.
Mm.
He's been through so much emotionally this season, and still, no matter what game it is, if he's out on that pitch, he's probably in a really bad game, still the only one you get pass marks to. Now, the problem with yesterday's game was they put Jack Henry Francis at centre half. He's
Mm.
not a centre half. He's a centre defensive mid
Yeah.
who was shunted. He's just shunted into that centre half position, or in case he was kind of played out wide a little bit in that back three. But you know, Jack Henry Francis was so nervous because he's not a centre half. He doesn't know what to do, and I think Johnny Russell's just kind of trying to find out what his best 11 is for the rest of the season or for the last 8 games, because at the time he's come in, they've made all the big money signings at the beginning of the season, and they're being smart where they're not just going to throw more money at it in the summer because the manager's changed. I think they'll have to ride out the storm till the end of the season, try their best to hit fourth. It's not
Yeah.
impossible. It's still there. They're only 3 points off Dundalk with a game in hand. It's not impossible. Hope that one of the top 3 wins the cup and then they get back into Europe. And I just think it's been a really frustrating season for Shels. The team is capable of so much more. The players that they have especially in Kerr McEnroy, you know, and I will say Kerr and Paddy have been the 2 best players so far this season for Shels.
Yeah.
They've just been outstanding, with the exception of Harry Wood, who's obviously gone over
On now, yeah.
to England. But there's so many players that you look at and say, I don't think you're going to be here next season. I don't think you work in Johnny Russell's style of football. But Sean Moore and Jack Henry Francis are perfect examples of what you spoke about earlier. Players coming back from England,
Yeah.
who have gone into the League of Ireland and have done really well. Like Sean Moore got a double against Calyu in Europe. You know, this guy's he's a very young player who's come over from West Ham's academy. Who played Cliftonville, went to West Ham, and then came back. He's been capped at under 21 level for Ireland as well. Daniel Ring, who has been touted as the next big striker for for Shels for the last few years, went out on loan to Finn Harps. Didn't really do much out there. It is a really difficult club to crack as a striker, but he came back and got his first goal in Europe. He came back off a loan. They called him back and he went and scored against Calyu. These are the players that Shels should be looking to for the future. They've got Jack Henry.
They've got a good academy, like that's the thing. That's their saving grace. They've got a good academy.
Shels have a great academy, and I think as a club, there's a really bright future for them. Now, this season, you can kind of already start to write off as, look, Joey O'Brien went. You've not had the real look of the results, and there has been some results where I've looked at it, especially yesterday, where a 2-2 draw, I don't think anyone, even past fans, would have shrugged their shoulders at. They had, Daniel Kelly's been outstanding as well, although sometimes he can be a bit too, he's tried to take on too many players, lose possession of the ball, and other players get frustrated. Rodrigo Freitas got sent off yesterday, but the frustrating thing is that should have been his first yellow, because the yellow for the first infraction wasn't even a yellow card. So they've really been unlucky in regards to refereeing decisions, which every club across the league has, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And just the performances have shown flashes of what they're capable of, but ultimately the same ghosts of, shall I say, ghosts of Duffer's past have come back to haunt them, where their defending on set pieces is still abysmal. I don't know if you've seen the goal. The first pass goal from yesterday was almost a criminal offence in football. Right?
Oh my god, the distinctive lack of
you know what I mean?
It was a telltale sign of like a team that's only started to do zonal marking again. That's what it felt like, because it felt like, oh shit, we have to move as well. Yeah, that's what it felt like.
Standing there in the 6-yard box to about 5-yard diameter of like space around them, and you're like, all you have to do is get it to him, and he did what he did. You just put the foot out. It was like, hey, there you go. Olasanya is a big prospect for Pats, and I'm excited to see how he gets on in the future. But overall, at Tolka, I think there's just a real, like yesterday, you could really feel it in the stadium. I definitely felt it in the stadium. There was an air of unease among everyone, the fans, the staff, and you could really feel that. And I've not felt that since I started working at Tolka.
Yeah.
Just a real air of unease and a real nervousness in the crowd and in the staff and
well, they've been the worst home team in the league. I think even like Sligo and Waterford have a better record this year. So
and it's shocking because it was really doesn't make any sense
No.
because the fans have turned out in their numbers every single game. You know, the Riverside's always rocking,
Mm.
and you know they have the backing. There's no reason why at home. Some of the football they've been playing at home has been sublime, but there's just the end product hasn't come off, which is why it's not in the headlines and not
Yeah.
in the highlights and everything else. There was a couple of times yesterday where you had a lovely triangle between two of the midfielders and a winger that wouldn't look out of place in a top team in La Liga. You know what I mean? And there's
Mm.
just little flashes of what they're capable of, but the end product isn't there, and they suffer for it.
Yeah.
And I think that sums up the season of the end product just isn't there. They don't have an out and out striker. You know, Meepo hasn't been seen. I think he's injured again.
Mm.
Sean Boyd hasn't been up to the standard. I don't think that Shels demand, and he's had a couple of injuries that have let him down. And Shels just don't have an out and out striker, and they haven't had for a while.
Yeah.
Which is why I think the development of Dan Ring is coming at a really good time now, where they can really develop him into a proper number 9,
Yeah.
a proper striker.
I was gonna say, like, I think Shells could really, like, if they do finish the season strong, I think they really should make a serious move for Tommy Lonergan.
Absolutely.
Because considering, like, you know, like, he's anyone who can outscore Paul Jam at Waterford, it deserves investigation.
Yeah.
But even then, like he's been quite central to Waterford's renaissance in a sense. Like, Graham Coughlin's getting the best out of him. Yeah. Listen, we're going to wrap up this bit of the pod anyway. But like in the bottom half of the league, we got Sligo, who are like 6 points away adrift. They look like they're going
suffering.
down.
They're suffering from player loss, manager loss, and just a general kind of.
It's the end of their run. For all the
It's unfortunate. Like we said, I don't want to see them go down.
Yeah.
This is the 10 teams that should be up, and there should be another team, 2 teams below it, battling it out for the playoff and the relegation.
Yeah, 100% agree. Cork will probably more likely take their place unless there's an absolutely calamitous fucking demise. In
Collapse of 20.
Yeah.
Oh, we've dropped a 20-point lead. I can't see that happening.
Yeah, I don't think even then they still get a playoff place. I think that's how far ahead they are.
That's mad, but anyway.
Yeah. So it looks like it's going to be a bit of a toss-up between Galway, Waterford and Drogheda for the playoff. And for what it's worth, I think all 3 of those teams will probably beat the first division team, which will more than likely be UCD or Bray.
It should be Bray, who didn't get up last season either, who are kind of... They're still reeling from that absolute shambles of a merger with Cabinteely. That just caused all sorts of absolute madness, which again, entertaining on our end, but not so much if you're a Bray fan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I think the biggest, I will give a shout out on the pod to one of the clubs that I've absolutely adored watching from a business point of view and from a football point of view is Kerry, who have
another one had a tough start to the year as well.
But they manage their expectations properly. They don't overspend. They manage their funds so well. And they have a project there that they're just building season on season. They're sitting in 6th place now. They're still able to make the playoffs. Last season was their highest finish. And I just think it's such a great project to see because they came in a few seasons ago, brand new club, right into the League of Ireland. And they've just been so good at the club management level and managing their expectations and just building the club up brick by brick, and it's just been an absolute pleasure to see.
Consider that like they're essentially, if you like, and I hate using the term, but they are like a wanky term, but they are like the newest franchise in the league as well.
Yeah.
So like it's nice to see like fresh ideas and again, it's also an area. It's like this Mayo FC project that's coming up as well now in the National League.
Yeah,
like that's the sort of stuff that the National League is designed for.
Area. Yeah. It's so good to see these counties where you know for a fact that Gaelic football is the predominant sport in these counties. It is.
But there's a huge catchment for football, as a national team will tell you as well. Yeah.
And you look at it and go, yeah, but Kerry has a team now, and soccer has broken in where Gaelic has dominated for 100 years nearly.
Yeah.
And to see that and a good faithful support in Mount Hawk Park as well. If this Mayo project comes to fruition, which I think it will, I think it's a good idea. Then you'll start to see the West Coast start to build. There's been always talks of Dublin has X amount of teams. You have like what is it, 4 in Dublin? 4. Yeah.
Well, if you're for the 4 in Dublin, I can't the big 4. Yeah.
Home farmer now National League.
And DC there with DCU as well.
DCU, so home farm DCU.
So and St. Moctus is the other one I was thinking of.
So and you know what's great about that is I'll finish up on this tangent because I'll end up talking for ages. if you have the home farm UC or home farm DCU go in and they get promoted from the National League, you'll then have the University Derby in the
Yeah, because
first
UCC
division.
can get promoted as well.
You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
kind of like,
Which is
oh,
hilarious because they have their
just
own university league as well, which is hilarious.
exactly. Do you know
Like
what I mean?
they're
So
like
that,
So TUD, UCC, and
yeah,
DCU are all putting like teams into the National League, even though they're already in their own league. Like make that make
exactly.
fucking sense.
So it's kind of it'd be great to see a DCU UCD derby in the first division,
Yeah,
but
it would be
yeah, I
very
just
funny anyway. I say that much, all right.
oh, it'd be amazing. But I just think like you have four or five in Dublin, whatever it is, and then you have two in Louth. You have
Mm,
Cork. You have two. Southeast. You have two in Wexford and Waterford.
yeah,
And you have Donegal has Finn Harps. But then if you go down, then you'll have Donegal, Sligo, Mayo, Galway,
yeah.
Kerry, Cork. That now starts to round out that West Coast, and then the cup competitions will start to take shape. The Munster Senior Cup,
Mm-hmm.
the Leinster Senior, like the Leinster Senior Cup is always not the best followed tournament, but it does, give
Good
give
quality.
a
It's always
chance
been a
for
very good competition. Yeah, historically.
yeah. So now you'll start to
Yeah,
see Province League Cup start to come up now.
yeah.
Um, and that's just going to build that up again when you have the likes of Sligo, Galway, Donegal, Mayo, Kerry,
Mm,
Cork. You just get a ring of clubs
yeah.
with those six counties kind of cut out for the time being. And I just think it's going to be great to see. It's going to be great to build. And I'm really excited for the next couple of years of Irish football.
Yeah, so it's certainly going to be very interesting anyway. And like I said, in the second half of the show, we'll be talking about like the kind of what's been kind of driving that, which has been the European adventure. So we'll get to that now momentarily. But first, Dave, I want to give yourself a little bit of a breather and give yourself a hydration break because it's time for a round of winning 11.
Woohoo!
So on the conversation, so I've gone for a League of Ireland themed winning 11 without necessarily going fully into the memory
Okay.
banks, because there have been quite a lot of names and faces over the years in the league. So I'm not going to challenge you on that. However, I do want to cast your mind back to the hazy days of December 2011. Do you
Oof.
remember what's been happening? What was happening in your life in December 2011?
Um, December 2011.
Yeah, 15 years ago almost.
I was a year and a half in Scotland.
Hmm.
I was young, impressionable, and stupid, making good and bad decisions. I will tell a story, but I think closer to that time, I did end up in A&E, because I had drank about 11 Jaeger bombs in the space of an hour.
That's how you ingratiate yourself in Scotland.
Yeah, it was just the sign said 1 pound Jaeger bombs, and I was like,
As you
hey,
do, yeah.
as you do. But that was probably my biggest memory of that first 2 years in Scotland. And speaking of 2011, I think it was the god awful. As a big Liverpool fan, I don't like to remember the time of 2011, 2012. Because we both don't like to remember that time
No.
in the club. But from a football point of view and from just my memories in general, I think, and now correct me if I'm wrong, was the kind of dominance of Dundalk.
we were pre-Dundalk at this stage. Well, it was
Pre-Dundalk,
brewing. It was
okay.
brewing. It was brewing at this stage.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay. So that was a few years. Yeah, that was a few
yeah,
years after that, wasn't it? That was like 14, 15.
yeah.
Um, that was kind of a year I don't really remember much in Irish football, to be honest with you, John. So this is gonna be a test for me.
Well, it is actually a massive year in Irish football because 2011 was the first time that an Irish club had got into the group stages of the traditional, what we now know to be
Ah,
the conventional
Europa
European competitions.
European competitions. Yeah.
Yes. So this was Shamrock Rovers' first foray into European football, with if I remember correctly, a win over two legs against Partizan Belgrade that got them into the Europa League. This is pre-Conference League, which is I'm shocked to hear only 4 years old. This is its
Yeah,
fourth
yeah.
iteration, which is insane to say. It feels like it's been around for a lot much longer. But chief amongst them, obviously, like Rovers were a very different outfit in 2011 because they're only a
Oh
couple of
god, yeah.
years out from being in administration. So they're and only back in
Which
the
is
league
still
recently.
crazy to see or
Yeah.
hear. Sorry, that 2011 they're just out of administration.
And this is also like it's only a couple of years after they had got the stadium in Tala as well. So it was a totally different club compared to the one that nearly went under.
I I remember being on the sidelines with the civil defense for that game against Real Madrid, and
Hmm.
I remember passing Cristiano Ronaldo in the hallway where the dressing rooms are, and it's just like I think I must have been 19 at the time,
Yeah.
and you're just like, oh my god, it's Ronaldo.
It's it
I
feels like
remember
such a
that
fever
that time
dream, doesn't it?
well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Um,
remember that time very, very well.
Yeah. So what I did was I went into that part of the archives, and I went back to one of their
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
highlights of the group games, which was the double header against Spurs.
Mm,
The actual glamour tie, if you like. So the glamour tie in that group stage was Shamrock Rovers rocking up to White Hart Lane, and first of all, opening the scoring, thanks to a whopper goal from Stephen Rice, which is essentially the goal that kind of really caught eyes on like, holy shit, an Irish team
yeah,
could
yeah,
actually do something here.
yeah.
Spurs would eventually win the game 3-1, but they did have to essentially bail themselves out for all intents and purposes, if you
You've
pardon the
unlocked a
pun.
memory. I remember Rovers scoring against Spurs.
Yeah,
You've unlocked a memory now that's just literally said that and it's just jumped into my head now. Yeah, I remember that.
yeah. And this is what I'm quizzing on you tonight, Dave, because I want you to
Good
guess
lord.
the team that Spurs fielded against Shamrock Rovers that night. So,
Oh,
so now for
right. I'm
audio
going
for audio
2011.
listeners only,
Let's
I will
go.
call out the names that are here. Now, what I've done is this is a curated list because Spurs had a
Yeah,
bloated team in 2011,
they did.
and obviously in the Europa League they are not playing all the first team players. This is a very curated list of candidates that could have fielded or did at least play in the Europa League that year. So, starting off, then we have Carlo Cudicini, Aurelio Gomez, Brad Friedel, Kyle Walker, Kyle Naughton, Danny Rose, Benoit Asuakoto, Vedran
Mm.
Corluka, Ledley King, Eunice Kabul, Sebastian Bassong, Jake Livermore, Tom Carroll, Luka Modric, Scott Parker, Rafael van der Vaart, Nico Kranjčar, Giovanni Dos Santos, Iago Falque, Roman
Jesus.
Pavlyuchenko, Andros Townsend, Jermaine Defoe, Harry Kane, and Gareth Bale. So, seeing that you're on your own here, Dave, what I'm going to get you
Yes.
to do is to basically select your first 11 and select three subs that would have featured in the
Okay.
game,
Now,
and they will flash up if you get them right.
okay, so this is weird, okay, because 2011 Spurs, for some reason, you ask any Barclays fan at the time, 2011 Spurs, and no word of a lie, they'll riff off half of that squad without even trying,
Mm,
because they'll know these little Barclays men like a Suakoto, they remember Danny Rose's volley, they
yeah.
remember
I do believe
Luka
this is the
Modric.
this is the team that does end up qualifying for the Champions League this year, and I think, and then they kind of stay in the Champions League for a good couple of years after that. So this is like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
platform that gets them to the Champions League.
Right, I'm gonna kick us off. I'm gonna kick us off.
Go for it.
I'm gonna go with Aurelio Gomez.
Go Gomez and goal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with Suakoto. I'm almost sure was that Spurs 2011 team.
Okay. You put him at now. He was a wing. He was a fullback, so you can either put him at left or right, or you want to put him more somewhere more creative.
I'm gonna put him on the right.
I'm on the right. Okay.
I am gonna go with Van der Vaart. I
Rafael
remember
van der
that
Vaart.
that
Yeah.
general early 2010s time of being that Van der Vaart. I'm not gonna say Chorluka because I feel like Chorluka was a Harry Redknapp signing.
Mm.
and I don't think I could be wrong actually, but I don't think he was in that squad. Wait, till you see
Where you put Van der Vaart, by
2011.
the way, in the midfield?
Yeah, a bit more a bit forward. Yeah, probably forward in the center
Number
attack wide
10?
role. Yeah.
Okay.
How long ago? Harry Kane. This was no Harry Kane wouldn't have been playing for Spurs. He would have been on loan because he's what 30. How old is he now?
He's 33 now.
Yeah. So you look at 10 years. 50, yeah, there's no fucking way he was in the starting 11. Yeah, because 2011 is 15 years ago. You
Mm.
minus that 15 from towards. There's
He'd
no
be,
fucking
he would
way.
have been 18 at the time. Yeah.
There's no way. He was out on loan at that
Right.
point.
Okay, so.
So Jake Livermore, God, that name. Yeah, that'll haunt that Spurs team.
Okay. So he'll be in defensive midfield then in that case.
Yeah. Yunus Kabul.
Yes, Kabul. Okay.
Basong.
Song. And to complete your back line,
Danny Rose.
Danny Rose.
Now, I'm going to say that I could be wrong and say that Kyle Walker would have been on the right-hand side. However,
yeah.
against Rovers, I have a feeling he might have been on the bench.
Okay.
Up
You can swap
front,
players
you
out
would
in
have-
fairness, like if you want to. If you're not
Yeah,
too sure, you
yeah.
can swap people out.
Because I'm just trying to build what I would imagine is the biggest 2011 Spurs squad known to man. Jesus Christ, Pavlyuchenko. I'm gonna go with Defoe.
Defoe front.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Defoe up front.
Are you playing with the one striker or
No, I'm going Pavlyuchenko up front with Jermaine Defoe.
okay, so it'll be a 4-4-2 you're playing then, is it?
4-4-2 diamond, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So you're just
And
missing
I'm
two
gonna
midfielders then.
go, yeah, and two right and left midfield. 2011. Had Bale moved to Madrid yet? I don't think he had.
Nope, he would have still been in the. He didn't move
would have
until
been on the
2015. I don't think
left.
2014.
He would have been on the left. I think he would have left Southampton at this point.
Hmm.
Yeah, go Gareth Bale on the left.
Okay.
This is gonna be completely wrong. And I will take on the right side. No, I'm not gonna put Brad Friedel on the right. As much as I'd love to. Put Brad Friedel outfield. Andros Townsend on that right hand side.
Andros Townsend. Okie dokie.
Now, the only reason I'm picking some of these guys is because I know that the likes of Luka Modric would sometimes get left out of a game, with all due respect to Rovers, in that kind of situation. Now,
Yeah.
I'm going to lock in this starting 11, because
Yeah.
I'm not going to start him and Han, otherwise I'll start swapping players out. I'm going to lock in that 11, and whatever I get right, or whatever I get wrong.
Great. And
I
just
would
you
have
can
said
pick
Ledley
three
King
players for subs then.
Okay, so I'm going to go with Ledley King,
Ledley King.
Kyle Naughton, and Carlo Cudicini.
As a goalkeeper for a sub? As in something with the three subs that came on during the game.
Oh, my bad. I'm going to go with Scott Parker.
Scott Parker, okay.
Yeah.
Are you keeping Ledley and Naughton?
3 players that came on.
There would have only been 3 subs at
Good
the time, in
shout.
fairness.
Good shout. Yeah, no, good shout. Giovanni Dos Santos for Kyle Naughton. Or Ledley King, sorry. Yeah, no, Ledley King. For Giovanni Dos Santos and Kyle Naughton, Scott Parker. Yeah, let's lock that in. Let's lock that in.
Okay, right. So everything, if you see anything flash up on screen, then you will have got them correct.
Oh God, it's going to be all the ones on the left now. Watch. Carry on. Oh, for the love of God.
I just realized that there is an error on my side. I didn't give you the correct player. So I will give you a freebie on that one now momentarily.
So the yellow ones are the ones I got right?
Yes.
I'm actually happy with that so far.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm
okay with that.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, if I got it, I looked at... Yeah, because I have a feeling bloody Modric was starting and then Bale wasn't there, and
But
Anyway,
don't worry,
carry on,
we're
carry on.
going to go through it now momentarily. Um, so first off in goal, so Aurelio Gomez was, you're correct, the number one, the number one goalkeeper at the time for
Yeah,
Spurs,
but didn't play.
but he didn't play. No, you're correct. It was actually
Ah.
Carlo Cudicini who played.
Well, at least I got them. Like, at least I got them right. As in, one was on the bench, one was starting.
Essentially, yeah. Yunus Kabul was actually an unused sub on the bench, so it actually was
Okay.
Korluka who played in this game.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
because this
Yeah, I
was a
did
Harry
not
Redknapp
expect that.
team. I didn't want to
Fuck's
give the game
sake.
away. So you have this side of the
Oh
field
my
correct. So
god.
Rose and Basong were the correct answer there.
Yeah.
Benoit Suikoto, you almost talked yourself into it. Kyle
Yeah,
Walker
Kyle
did actually
Walker.
play this game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I tossed it between I tossed up between Asuakato and Walker.
yeah,
I thought
yep.
I just went for the wrong one. But anyway.
Exactly. So Jake Livermore was one of the correct answers, but if I rejig the team around a little bit, Jake Livermore had a friend in midfield, which was Tom Carroll,
Hmm.
started this game.
I don't
Um,
really remember Tom Carroll that well, so that's why
no,
I
he
didn't I
ended up in
didn't put him
Swansea
in
for a
there.
couple of years,
Yeah, yeah.
and I think injuries caught up to him in the end. So Rafa van der Vaart did not feature at all in this game, not even on the bench. Andros Townsend, I'm going to give you this one, Dave, because I actually made a mistake on this side. It was actually Aaron Lennon who featured in this
And you know
team.
what's funny? I would have actually picked him had he have been there.
Yeah,
And I'm not
yeah,
just saying that, but I was wondering between the right side of, was it Aaron Lennon or was it Andros Townsend? There was definitely something with an A
yeah,
on the
yeah, yeah.
right hand side.
So,
But
so I'm
no,
gonna I'm gonna give you
that's
that one
fair.
as a
That's
freebie because
fair.
that was my mistake,
Okay.
unfortunately. Giovanni Dos Santos actually started the game.
Okay, on the left side. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, on the
Okay.
left side. So
All right.
that's a
All
kind of a
right.
half point if you like. So you had him down as a
Yeah,
sub
yeah,
instead
yeah.
of a starter. So yes, he was actually that's the formation there that they were playing. But Pavlyuchenko and Defoe were absolutely correct on the ball. Both of them scored in the game, actually.
Hmm.
And as did Giovanni Dos Santos, they were the three goal scorers after Royce scored that screamer. But the correct answers in terms of subs was Andros Townsend. One of them
Yeah.
was he was one of the subs, so that's another half mark.
You're gonna say Falke now, aren't you?
Falke actually was one of the subs, yeah. He was indeed. And the other
Yeah.
sub was an 18-year-old Harry
Oh,
Kane.
get out. Oh, I was
And what's even going to
wrong
stick in
on
you
that
even
one.
more is that in the return leg at Tala Stadium, Harry
He
Kane
scored.
scored his first goal for Spurs in a 4-0 win against Shamrock Rovers.
How wrong was I? My God. How? Hey, I'll take the amount I got right. I will take that all day long from
You
someone
got
who's
over
not looked at
50%,
that team.
which is still pretty
Yeah,
good. So you
that's
got six
decent.
out of the 7 out of the 13 right, which is
I'll
still
take that.
pretty good. So
I'll
that's
take
fine.
that all day
Yeah,
long. All day
exactly.
long.
Especially when it helps when I don't give you the wrong fucking list of players. In fairness, that doesn't help matters.
Yeah, but you
So,
get what I mean when I say that. Like, even you've just said 2011 Tottenham, and I've just riffed off over 50% of the team. For
yeah.
some reason, that Harry Redknapp team, which I said wasn't a Harry Redknapp team, turns out it was a Harry Redknapp team,
hmm
are just so memorable of that era of the 2010s
It
and the
it was
late
a boon for
2000s.
Spurs. In fairness, it was a
Yeah,
good time
like
to be
you
a Spurs fan.
just
To be fair,
yeah.
and you can tell they really kept that feel good spirit going for over the last 15 years. Very much highs and
Win a
dizzy,
European
dizzy
trophy.
lows.
Oh, you've won a European trophy. Sacked.
There's always something they can always have in the back pocket. But anyway, for the second half of the show, then we're going to be talking about the league's European exploits,
Yeah.
and we're like again, not to say that like they've been few and far between, but we're going to go by club by competition here and kind of
Sure.
follow everyone trickle down. So then people who are not too sure about how the kind of seeding and the groupings and the matchups work, this will be a bit of an explainer at the same time.
Sure.
So starting off at the Champions League. So strictly Shamrock Rovers here on this one to start off with. So I think I'm gonna go by club. I think that makes the most sense.
Okay.
Because everyone is ending up one way or another anyway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Shamrock Rovers' adventure started off. So now because Rovers have qualified for Euro for quite a few goes around, they are now very much a seeded team in this stage of the competition, which
Sure.
I can tell you from experience makes a massive, massive difference when it comes to the draws that they get. Um, and again, the UEFA do these kind of like pre-seeds and stuff like that, so you kind of have a general idea of who you might get before the actual draw is made. So we got the Maltese champions Floriana, and again, for those uninitiated, each qualifying round in Europe basically has two paths, which is the champions path and the league path, and that is as the name implies. Any of the champions are basically batched together, and they all play each other in a kind of almost like a mini league, and they all trickle down the system as essentially they go along. And then likewise, anyone who's in the league path is essentially just pure knockout rounds. Once you're out type of thing. But seeing that you depend, there's one pitfall basically in the Champions League, which is if you win the first qualifying round, you're through to the second Champions League, and you're basically on a kind of a stepwise system where if you lose, you go down to the Europa League and then down to the Conference League. However, if you had lost this first qualifying round, you don't get that at all. You go straight down to the Conference League second round, qualifying round, and you basically lose your seeding if you're a team like Shamrock Rovers. So that's what happened to them in
Yeah,
2024,
exactly.
where they lost against the Icelandic champions Breidablik. Then they ended up losing against Chavros, who also fucked up their match in the Faroe Islands. So it was an absolute disaster from start to finish. Didn't want to repeat of that. Didn't help the fact that they lost the Maltese leg 2-0. Um,
Hmm.
putting plenty of fucking pressure on him to get it done in the second leg, which he did with a 5-1 win. Um,
Yeah,
One of the most emphatic European victories I've been privy to, I've been witness to, in fairness, from being there. It was literally like I know there's always a joke of like what gear is Shamrock Rovers in? Okay, that match against Floriana was when they were in full gear, like when they are actually playing the team off the pitch, and they're very very capable of doing so.
yeah,
It's just a frustrating thing that he just couldn't do it away from home as well, and I think that could be our downfall a little bit in the next round. So ultimately, the exact same thing happened in the second qualifying round. We're up against Ararat Armenia, which is realistically one of the better draws we could have got.
yeah,
From the kind of relative pitfalls there, like Dinamo Zagreb was possible, Red Star Belgrade was possible, Saba,
yeah,
who played Pats last year, there was a
yeah,
possibility as well. But we got one of the more benevolent draws in it. And again, same thing, 2-0 loss away from home to start the whole tie off. And then Ararat score what I will say, a bit of a sucker punch of a goal in the home tie that ultimately knock us out of the Champions League. And I think a lot of Rovers fans will probably be kind of like, I think we'll be kind of hopeful that we'll get European football anyway this year. But this Champions League run was very, very possible for Rovers this year. And the only reason I say that is because you look at who Ararat got in the next round, which was against Kelje, and they beat Kelje. This is a Slovenian team that we've got constantly in Europe over the last few years. So getting them in a qualifying round is no great shakes in a sense. And then should they've gone to the playoffs, they would have got either Mjolby or Slaven Bratislava, again a fairly doable tie as well. So Champions League football was very much a prospect here, and unfortunately they let it slip. This is a bit of a shame, but they're still in the Europa League at the moment, which is going well for the moment. They're against an Albanian team called Ignatia. They won 3-1 in the home leg, but again, that frailty away from home, especially in Albania where it could go to extra time, that's going to be a real challenge for Rovers. They'll need all their experience to get that across the
yeah,
line. However, if they do win that match, they will be guaranteed European football in some shape or fashion.
yeah.
Because they will go up against Lillestrøm, who are the Norwegian champions. And they are are the Norwegian champions? I don't think they are. I think they are the runners up, I think, this year, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just double check that. Uh,
Yeah, because Cup. Who's it that are normally the Norwegian champions?
it was
Molde,
Butter
Molde,
Glimt has been the last while,
Bode
so.
Glimt. Yeah,
Mm. Um, yes, no, I tell you what, they were cup winners. That's why. That's why they were. That's why they're in
and
the
how'd you get a
Europa
cup?
League. Yes. So Lillestrøm are coming in then. So again, a win against this and against a Norway team that we haven't played before, in fairness, but we have played Norwegian teams before, and we've had them in good stead. So Europa League football is looking promising for Rovers. And the if we were to get knocked out, I would say it's not the best draw in the world in the Conference League playoff. If I'm really being honest, I'd probably have a preference not to get this batch, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah,
So we have a choice between either Coops or University Craiova, basically the loser of that tie, and that's currently 1-1. So both of them are kind of equal strength in that sense. So I'd probably
yeah,
rather get the job
yeah.
done this week and then let the cards lie where they are with
Fair.
Lillestrøm. So let's hope so anyway. Like it could like Europa League football is very, very possible for Rovers this year.
Hmm.
If
Yeah,
they get this job done. And they have done it before. They've had tough
yeah.
draws
They've
in
done it
Europe and
before.
they've done it. So
Yeah, I mean, last year was a perfect example of having a good campaign, having a good run, especially that tie in Stamford Bridge, which was spectacular for Rovers, for the
Hmm.
fans as well to get across to, regardless of the result. The same for Shels when they hosted Crystal Palace. Wasn't
Yeah,
the easiest of games, and Meepo could have scored, but he didn't. Um,
it just happens. Like that's
which is, but
experience as well.
those ties are what European football is all about. The
Mm,
ability to play against the Chelseas, the Palaces, and have them at home ties as well.
yeah,
Is crazy. But yeah, look, Rovers' consistency of getting European football is one of the things that's going to keep the Irish League in good standings with the coefficient, and
yeah.
in keeping us up there and keeping it steady with European football every single year. You've seen how bad Scotland suffered when Celtic and Rangers didn't make the Champions League
Hmm.
in their coefficients and in their seedings, and then the potential of losing a spot in Europe,
Yeah.
which you do not want, especially when Ireland is thriving with four potential spots depending on cup winners, which is crazy.
Mm.
Four Irish teams in Europe, like you look at that and would have said, it's like
Well,
20
but
years ago. You'd
that's
be
the
like, no,
advantage
one
of
team. You know what I mean?
that's
Yeah,
the advantage of the Conference League.
it's why they
That's
brought
what
it
it
in.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's why they brought it in.
Mm.
But you look at the other two teams, and I think Bohs have been a sleeper. I think they've enjoyed not having the attention of how well that they've done in Europe. To
Well,
my
yeah, because
knowledge,
they would
correct
have
me if
had to
I'm
do it the
wrong.
hard way as well. Like they would have had to start off in the first round. So getting the result against St. Joseph's, which is a team that's beaten Irish competition before
Yeah,
in rather embarrassing fashion. So they again getting the job done the first leg. This is the conversation you could say as well. Like I don't know whether the actual like they always give the seeded team the home tie in the second leg, and I do wonder whether that sort of science about giving them the home tie last is actually doable or not, because I don't think
yeah,
we got the advantage of that really ourselves. I
yeah,
think we would have preferred to nip the game the tie in the bud in the first leg and then kind of like like be staunch defense at home.
yeah,
Maybe it'll be different now against if we do get to the next round, whether it be in the Conference League or in the Europa League,
yeah,
because we'll have the home tie first as well
yeah.
because we would have lost our
Because like
seeding.
going up against the likes of Midtjylland is always tough.
Yeah,
Now they've obviously lost. They've lost the home. Was it the home leg?
they've lost the home like 2-0. Yeah,
They lost the home leg 2-0, right? It's always tough, but when you get a team like Midtjylland who have been in the league phase group stage of Europe for many years now,
yeah.
um, getting to this point of the Conference League, the third qualifying round,
Mm,
getting a team like Midtjylland, I wouldn't be too disheartened about going out to Midtjylland, if I'm quite honest with you, because of their standing in Europe and how consistent they've been.
yeah.
Getting the win over Balkany
It was big.
although
That was
in
important. Yeah.
spectacular fashion,
Mm,
winning the home leg and then beating them on penalties away from home, that'll put a skip in their step, regardless of whether it goes well or doesn't go well against Midtjylland. They've got to the third round.
hmm.
And the same with Shels getting as far as they did, and now Rovers almost guaranteeing themselves European football. The European adventures of Irish clubs have now consistently gone deep towards the playoff round for the
Hmm.
last few years, and in some cases last year we had two League of Ireland teams in European league phase competition, which was the first time in its history, and it goes to show the progression of
Yeah.
the league. Um,
But yeah,
Shell,
it does demonstrate the power seeding. That's the
yeah,
key thing as well,
absolutely,
because
and
Shells would have got they got quite generous kind of like draws. Like first of all, getting going into the second round is important, is massive as well, because
yeah,
again,
absolutely.
any banana peel you can get in that first round is not
Oh,
for nothing. Because bear in mind
yeah,
that non-Calgary team beat Linfield to get to the
yeah,
second round anyway.
and it goes to
And
show, like Linfield, although Shells beat them last year in their
yeah.
run into the league phase, being beaten by a team like Numakalu, who I'll be honest with you, is one of the worst European sides I've ever watched
Mm,
in person, ever. Having them beating Linfield raises more questions about where the hell are Linfield going than
yeah,
anything
the
else.
Northern Irish League I think
Um,
is in
no,
free fall, to be honest. Yeah.
it's almost last rites, call a priest in type of thing,
Yeah.
or a pastor, depending on your religious preference.
Whatever suits, whatever
Um,
whoever's available. Yeah, but again,
you
that
know,
again, the seeding thing is so important in these kind of
yeah,
groups,
it
because again,
really
I think the
is.
likes of Bohemians, like what really affects the league, and again goes back to our conversation about like not having that kind of consistent competition.
Yep.
Bows and Pats are not consistently second and third,
No,
and
no, no.
because of that, then they're not consistently in Europe, and they're not consistently chipping away
Yeah,
at those kind of small wins. Because again, the Rovers getting to the from the to the group stages back in 2011, as we were talking about earlier on,
yeah,
like that in of itself is a base that we've been able to build our seeding on. But then
yeah,
those couple of like campaigns in the Bradley era, getting to Europe, getting to the Europa League
yeah,
once, and then the Conference League since its creation, like three times now, I want to say. Um,
yeah, yeah. You're not wrong.
like, and every win is points, every win
I
is
think
stuff
you
with a
had
coefficient and all that jazz.
Dundalk's win over, was it not Karabag? It was an Azerbaijani team. Was it the first 3 points by an Irish club in European history? European
Something like
football?
that.
It
Yeah,
was Dundalk against an Azerbaijani. It might have been I can't remember the name of the team. But it just like that was in between. That was just before the kind of Bradley era of
yeah,
Rovers then making it consistently. But Dundalk had that little foundation built for Irish football from a European perspective under Stephen Kenny.
mm,
20 odd or 10 years ago, should I
yeah.
say? And it's funny because if Shels make fourth and make Europe this year, you could almost say that Shels have been consistently fourth for the past 2 seasons
Yeah,
and still making Europe, and they've not even been second or third. They've either won it or they've finished fourth.
but that's just it though.
Um,
That's the thing. Like
but
it is
having
down to
Ajax at
consistency and getting
home,
it all the time. Yeah.
yeah, and going away to Ajax, and what I love about the away leg last week
Mm,
was that they didn't capitulate, right? They represented Irish football really well in Europe last week because not only did they keep their heads up high, they scored against Ajax
mm,
in Amsterdam, but they put on a performance that kind of gave them a lot of respect among
yeah.
fans because normally you get a team like Ajax coming up. Now, given, you know, with all due respect to Ajax, their current standing isn't as high as it was when they
Hmm.
peaked against Spurs in the semi-final of the Champions League
And they probably would have said
years
they should have
ago.
beat like Shells by six, really, if they're
Yeah,
if going by
you
stats.
look at it
Yeah.
and go, you should have won, 6-0, but Shells didn't back down, and
Mm,
now they're going into Thursday. Very thankful to be there and to be able to take all that in on Thursday. I'm really looking forward to it.
hmm.
Um, to bring a team like Ajax to Tolga, to sell the game out within an hour, and to have that fanfare come to Tolka Park, and no doubt they're going to bring their ultras. They're probably going to march down Richmond Road as well. I would imagine. Now they probably won't, but me personally, I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
I love when these European clubs come to Dublin and some of them just do that fan march down the road and stuff without any trouble,
Mm,
obviously, hopefully. And it's just an occasion that you can sink in because, like, at the end of the day, if Shells get one early goal or a look at the ball where it just ends up in the back of the net, it really is game on, and it's that
oh yeah.
atmosphere that you want at these stadiums, especially when Rovers bring big clubs into Tallaght Stadium, and you get that higher gate of 8 to 10,000 fans. Just the atmosphere alone is just you have to grab it with both hands because it doesn't come around often,
Oh
and
yeah,
that's
definitely.
why when Bows have this new stadium finished and done with now, I think it's going to be looked at now of, right, Bows, you need to be consistently in Europe every year. You want to have these big teams come to that brand new stadium that you're building. Rovers did it with Tala. They hosted Real Madrid in the first ever game at Tala Stadium. Shells have hosted big teams in the past as well in Europe at Tolka. And I think it's just, you want that fanfare. You want these big games, these big European nights. I've had it with Hibs, in Scotland, being a season ticket holder, years ago. It was just so good. Getting Brøndby as well at home during their peak. Um,
Yeah.
they're memories, and you want these fans to have their dads bringing their kids to Tala or Tolka or Dalymount, or Richmond Park, and you want them to go to these stadiums and say to their kids, like, take this in. When I was your age, I seen X whatever team it is here
Yeah.
in Europe, and now you're getting to see, our team in Europe, and it's a generational thing as well. You want to carry that on from
Mm,
generation to generation, and I always love the the fairy tale of European football, especially when it's in Irish football as well, because we went through decades of it where it just wasn't happening. Decades
Absolutely, yeah.
of just the one team getting a first round qualifier in the 2000 the Aircom League days,
Mm.
where we only had one spot, and it was just the one team getting into a first round qualifier. It wasn't even the second or third or fourth round or whatever it is now. But even when you played video games back in the day, when you played the FIFAs and it was just Dublin red,
Mm.
Dublin blue, and they weren't even playable. They were just teams that showed up in the group stages of
Yeah,
that
they were just the
competition because
placeholders. Yeah,
they were just the placeholders because they
yeah,
didn't have the license at the time, and it was just like, oh, Dublin red or Dublin blue, whatever it was.
yeah.
And I love that it's gone from Aircom League of one spot to 4 spots in Europe, albeit with the addition of another competition. Doesn't matter that competition, as much as we made fun of it at the beginning sometimes when we said this is silly having 3, now we see the benefit.
Oh no,
Now we see,
I've been massive. That's the thing. Like, it's
yeah,
also the. I accept your point in terms of, like, the conference league itself has grown great, but like the kind of fairly maligned kind of like this kind of new kind of like league system in a sense.
yeah.
Like, sure,
I
for the
was
Champions
against it,
League,
and now I'm like, okay, maybe it does work.
but I think it works the best for the Conference League itself
Yeah, 100%.
because
Yeah.
I think the Conference League itself is it's better because there's only 6 league games in it. So
Yes,
for
it's
all
much more
these smaller
manageable.
clubs, you're not having to
Yeah,
travel around so much because, again, they're also looking at the
yeah,
maths and thinking, oh geez, like someone could get, like,
yeah,
3 away ties all in 3 different parts of the world
yeah.
in that respect.
And for a lot of leagues,
Whereas,
it's their off season as well. The
yeah,
Scandinavian teams, I'm pretty sure, is their off season because, well, their pitches are probably under 7 feet of snow.
yeah,
But
exactly. They're on the same. They're somewhere season, somewhere league like we are.
exactly.
Yeah, but like even like
So
the Europa League is probably the biggest loser of the current of the new setup because it is the middle child in a sense. Like, it
oh,
is literally,
massively.
yeah.
Yeah,
It is purely the fact that, like, um you're still getting 8 games, which is in of itself a good thing, but they're not the glamorous ties because they're happening on the same week as Champions League, and they need to make themselves stand out a little bit more.
the
Even for Shamrock Rovers, like,
yeah,
if they had the choice, would they rather be getting
Conference
hidings in
League,
in the Europa League, or
Conference
at
League
least
all
somebody
day.
competent in the
Yeah,
conference? That's the tricky bit as well,
it's
because,
so
like,
funny. Like we look at a specific tie that was almost meme in nature,
mm,
and it sums up the kind of fall of the Europa League. We had Man United and Spurs in a Europa League final, and both teams were in the bottom half of the league. Spurs finished 17th that season,
yeah,
and they became the laughingstock final of Europe in a season, I think, where West Ham won it. Am I right in saying that West
in the
Ham won the
Conference
Conference
League,
League?
yeah.
And there was more fanfare for West Ham winning the Conference League and Declan Rice holding that trophy up than there was for Manchester United against Tottenham Hotspur in a European final.
That year, I
And
think it was actually Chelsea who won the Conference League. Actually, come to
sorry,
think of it,
apologies,
yeah,
Chelsea won the
It was
Conference League.
Chelsea.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
but the fact that Chelsea
Mm.
went on to win everything, as in
Yeah,
they won the Club World Cup, they won the Conference League, and
yeah.
Chelsea, I think, were the first club to win all 3, maybe. No, that was just Mourinho, I think. But
No, actually, no. They are the first team to
no,
win all 3
they were the
competitions. Yeah, yeah,
first
yeah.
team to win all 3.
Mm.
And there was more fanfare of the dominance of Chelsea than Manchester United and Tottenham Hotspur in a European final, to the point where they were a bloody meme on the bottom of a European season.
Yeah, but this is
That
the thing
tells
about
you
the
everything.
Europa League is that, like, even if we were to get, like, drummings in that
And that
Europa
one's for
League.
Aaron. Eat it, Aaron, if you're
Oh yeah,
listening.
of course, yeah. No, I know he'll that'll be living rent free in his head. But even then though, like, there is that sort of situation where, even if we were to have the choice, let's say if we were to really push against that game against Lillestrøm and get into the Europa League,
Mhm.
a lot of the teams that are in the Europa League probably don't see the financial, like, I'm talking not necessarily like about like all European
Mm,
teams, but I'm thinking of the
yeah,
likes of, say, Leverkusen or maybe Milan or the Premier League teams, where, like, the Premier League
yeah,
financially are all sorted. Like, you living playing in
yeah.
Europe can sometimes be a bit of an inconvenience. But
I see where you're coming from, John. And I'm sorry to cut
yeah,
across you there, but I completely see where you're coming from, because
yeah,
you want to be in a competition where you have the chance of at least winning 2 of the 6 games or
yeah.
3 of the 6
I'm
games in some
trying to progress.
cases,
Yeah.
rather than, oh, we have these glamour ties, but we're going to get a hiding. Like, why are we happy about glorious failure? Of, oh, we've got Milan, yeah, but we're not beating
Mm.
Milan.
But it's also
You know,
it's also the money about it as well. That's the other key part of it, is that, like,
yeah,
Like
Yeah.
you get a couple of million for it, but again, the Europa League is also another step up on that. Like Champions League qualification means about 20, a guaranteed 21 million in your bank pocket if you're
Yeah.
for any club whatsoever.
But a win
Again,
in the
certain
Conference League,
teams
I
will
would
see that,
imagine,
but yeah.
would warrant more than a loss in the Europa League, I'm sure.
Well, that's just it. Again, but again, there's also prize money attached to getting draws and results there. But
And
again,
wins. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
eight European games, where you're less likely to win, against six teams that or six ties in the
You're
Conference League
more
where
than
you
likely
might
going to
get
win.
further into the competition. That's tricky. But like listen to the conversation we're having. Like that is something that would have never been like that is something we
Yeah.
are slightly entitled in talking about
Yeah,
here because.
like getting to the next round of the Conference League when you're an Irish club now is not impossible.
No,
You
it's been done.
Rovers have done it.
It's done. It's been done.
It's
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
And to think that we're talking about, in the year of our Lord 2026, that we're talking about Irish clubs in a European competition,
Mm.
almost like you said, in an entitled way, and getting to the knockout stages of a European competition
Yeah.
is almost surreal
Mm.
because we're realistic when it comes to the League of Ireland. We don't get we don't fever dream too much. We don't have too much expectation
Yes.
when it comes to European football. But the fact that saying that isn't an over expectation is just wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just so it just makes me happy that our league is now in a standing of no, qualifying for the knockout phase is not over expectant. It's not like
Mm.
having a stupid dream. No, it's been done.
Yeah.
So it can be
It
done
can be
again.
done.
And
Yeah.
it's nice to have that feeling about our league that it's not impossible to go deep into European competition anymore. And credit to the Conference League for that, to give Irish teams a platform to
Mm.
go further in Europe. And we have gone further in Europe, and we will go further in Europe. How far? Who knows? We don't know what the future holds. But ultimately, this season has been a combination of kind of unlucky draws, but at the same time, a good showing in Europe for all three sides. And I don't think we've had that we don't think we've ever had that actually, where all three have shown. Because Pat's obviously got a hiding from Başakşehir
Yeah.
last season, but Bohs this season have put in a really respectable performance, and the same with Shels away against Ajax, same with Rovers. All three teams have had a good showing and good standard against these teams in Europe, and long may that continue. That's all I can say.
Yeah, and that's to say it's a pity that Derry couldn't do it
Yeah,
against
yeah,
Sofia and Rijeka. Now again, I think they're also were a little bit victim of losing their good
yeah.
side of the draw. But again, yeah.
Rijeka I seen against Shels last season. Rijeka are a tough side who, in some cases, consistently made that league phase and group stage in the past, especially in the Europa League.
Yeah.
I think Derry, with the combination of internal politics, James McLean, and just a rough time of a season so far, and all that rotation and the 57 players over the course of 2 seasons, or whatever the mad number is, that's all going to compound on you, and that's the reason they didn't do well in Europe, because they couldn't focus on it. The focus was stretched between four different problems, and and Europe fell by the wayside, in my opinion.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, like as I said, the McLean situation, even while we're talking, is even getting funnier because
Jonathan, I've seen the article. James McLean is Enoch Burking,
yeah,
Derry City.
he's apparently showing up to training tomorrow. Yeah,
I'm already working on that meme. Don't worry, I'll have it in the group chat later on. Don't you worry.
Oh,
Enoch McLean will become a meme.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like what better way to sign out the podcast than with that? And I think that's
absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, that's our League of Ireland wrap up. We're hopefully going to be doing another one when the season does officially end, and we'll have a much clearer idea of what European exploits, if any at all, we can look forward to from Irish clubs this year. And hopefully, Bohs can do us a solid and cause an upset in Denmark. Maybe Shelbourne can shock an ailing Ajax. We shall have to wait and see.
Look,
It's entirely possible,
If Shels can knock Ajax out of Europe, I guarantee you they might as well build a statue for Johnny Russell now. Forget that. Like, you will not, if Shels somehow manage to get 2 red cards for Ajax out of the referee somehow, or
Hmm.
manage to somehow knock Ajax out of Europe. It'll be
Yeah,
the biggest result in the club's history. It won't be beaten for a very, very, very long time, if ever. It'll be one of
it'd
the
be the biggest
biggest
result for
results
an
in
Irish
Irish
club
history.
in
Oh
Europe. Yeah.
God, absolutely. And do you know what? I hope they bloody well do, because you know I want our clubs, regardless of what your tribalism is, regardless of who you support.
Mm.
I want to see our Irish clubs go as far in Europe as possible, because it's the only way this league is going to progress. Because
Yeah.
Europe, as you said, it's the money maker. It keeps the club sustainable, and the more clubs that can push for the European spots in Ireland, the better. And I'll sign off on that note.
Yeah, absolutely, 100% agree, and we shall find out very, very soon what the future holds. But for now, we're going to leave it here on the Liquid Football Podcast for this edition. And when we come back, we are going to be doing our Premier League preview. We are going to talk about the hideous capitalist husk that is English football, and we're going to leave ourselves to having real football that we're not going to talk about because you don't deserve it. No, I'm only joking.
Dick
Um,
Cheney would be proud.
Yes, exactly. So we're gonna be talking about English football. We're gonna be talking about the Premier League because the preview is gonna be starting, and we're gonna be putting out a pod just before the first game of the season starts off between Arsenal and Coventry. And we're gonna do our league predictions, talk about what's intriguing us the most
Yeah.
about the certain clubs,
Great
what
to
the
see
prize
Coventry back in
packages.
the Premier League. Welcome back, Coventry City.
It's a real
Absolutely
it's a real
delighted.
fucking throwback, isn't it? Like, it's
Yeah,
a
look, I'm looking at it and going, Gary McAllister. I'm looking at, was it Robbie Keane who started off with, or was on loan at Coventry?
yes. No, Robbie Keane
Yeah,
was
no,
started off
Robbie
there.
Keane
Yeah,
was
yeah,
started off
yeah.
Coventry. And I'm just I'm trying to remember all of the names and all of the games and players from the early to mid 2000s before they ended up going down.
Don't
And it's
don't say so
just
much now,
so
Dave,
brilliant.
because it might end up being a winning 11 game next week. So just be careful now. Don't.
Sorry, I scratched my throat there. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, that was much. Okay, then. So, yeah, until then, lads, thank you very much for tuning in to this episode of the Liquid Football Podcast. Dave, thank you very much for joining on
Oh,
yourself
it's been a
for this
pleasure.
episode.
Any excuse to talk about our beautiful league.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. And if you wanted to hear more about our musings on football, whether it be League of Ireland or just generally, by all means, follow the podcast on YouTube Music or on this YouTube channel in of itself. And if you want to join us on our Discord channel, where we're going to be posting updates on all the other stuff that we're doing outside of this podcast, including all of our playthroughs on YouTube and all of our other podcasts as well, if you want to hear about all the other musings that we have amongst just football itself. But for now, that has been League of Ireland. This has been Liquid Football, and we'll see you for the next match. Good night, everybody.